Hello, Claudia.
Well, hey, Conrad, how are you? How was your week?
My week was terrific. And for all of our viewers, today we're going to be talking about one of us made some bread at home, one of us got the vaccine. And
Ooh,
then, of course, we're going to be talking about an interview that you did, Claudia, with Robert Webster from Mid Mod Facade. Is that correct?
that's correct.
All righty,
That's
good
correct.
deal. All right,
That's
so
exciting.
let's
I'm excited to be able to sit down with him.
let's
So,
talk about your vaccine experience.
okay. So
Yeah.
I was the one who had the vaccine, along with Alan, my husband, and our producer. We had the vaccines last Thursday, and we thought, oh, no big deal, we're fine. And why are we so sleepy? That went for several days. I mean, we're talking like going to bed at 8 o'clock, right? And then we thought, why are we kind of getting sore in other areas besides the arm? Weirdly enough, we discovered, and as our viewers, a lot of them know, I recently had a hip replacement, and Alan happens to have these pins in his elbow, metal and metal, that he's had for years. And all of a sudden, we started getting acute pains in these areas. So we talked to a doctor friend that said, and this for our viewers, if you have any of this could happen to you. The antibodies were trying to attack these foreign objects in our bodies, and it was not pleasant. So
That's
yeah, right?
that's very bizarre.
Very bizarre. I felt like I was going backwards, as far as all my physical therapy and all of this. And Alan's elbow was like, I haven't felt this in 24 years. And
Wow.
yeah,
Interesting.
so that can be, we let the CDC know because there is a vaccination app that you download when you're getting your vaccines. And so they ask you every day, like, any symptoms, what are you experiencing? So we told them all of this. So we
Wow.
put it out there to the vaccinating community in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. and wait, and so that's us. And now we're days into, well, we're about 5 days into it, I think, the Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Yeah. And tell us about your bread making. Tell our viewers, you decided you wanted to make bread.
Let me here. So here's my final product. Okay.
Oh, that looks good.
Not bad at all. But let me tell you, it took me 3 tries to get to the fourth try. I didn't have my yeast wasn't correct, and then I didn't use enough hot water, and then I had too much flour, and then I kneaded it too much. Oh my gosh, it was I almost gave up until I talked to 2 friends of mine who had been making bread for a while. And the one key this friend of mine said is don't use the active yeast, use the fast rising yeast, which means you don't have to do a lot more kneading associated with your cooking. And I'll be darned if this is what comes when you do it the right way.
So is that like a country rustic bread or a sourdough?
It's like a sourdough bread, which is what it ended up being. And I used you can see I have the butter here on the side. What I did is I put together butter and honey to make a butter honey that the pioneer woman from the Food Network said is delicious with bread. And that is now one of my favorite butters when you're having this kind of bread.
We're there. At least I'm there.
Yes. And let me tell you,
that sounds great. Is it
crunchy? It was terrific. It was very moist inside, just like a real nice piece of bread. But I'll tell you the bad thing about making bread at home. And I bet you any of our viewers who have made bread know this. The house smells delicious, right? All the time the bread is making.
Eat it every time you pass by the kitchen.
Oh, yes. And then as soon as the bread is done and it starts cooling, you want in quickly to have that bread. And so you have to have a slice right away. And then you have to have a slice with dinner. And then the next afternoon, it's a slice.
Well in our household.
Yeah. Well, much like us, we don't do a lot of carbs, but bread, fresh bread, delicious.
That sounds really great. It sounds like a lot of work.
It was a lot of work.
I would mess it up, but that's great. Now it sounds like you've perfected it. You've learned.
It can be done. It can be done.
Craft. And we've been talking and mentioning like what people have been doing all during the pandemic. We've talked about different things, and so you've been baking, and I know you did your pies, and now you're on to breads, and it's very creative. On our end, we're doing our PS Piano Bar show. But other people in the community, we want to introduce my friend and a fantastic local artist, Robert Webster.
Correct.
Who will be talking about what he's been doing. He started before the pandemic, and I'll get into that when we interview. But he has a thing called mid-mod facade. He's totally into mid-century architecture, and he builds these facades of mid-century homes out of mat board and layers, but they're very, very unique. So I think what we should do now is switch right over to this video. We have two videos, one of him actually talking about his work so you get more understanding how it came to be, and then I sit down and chat with him more about his process and his background. Let's look at the videos and the interview right now, and then we'll mention a few things in the end more about him. So let's let Bob take over now.
Let's do it.
So mid-mod facade wasn't the original process. What I had actually started was building Christmas villages from retro renovations based on some patterns that they had downloaded about 2.5, 3 years ago, and decided that I was going to build my own mid-century modern Christmas village and use their patterns. Those patterns are for personal use only, so what I did is I developed some of my own, and the scraps that I had left over, I actually constructed some classic Palm Springs mid-century modern facades, just putting some stuff on paper, and posted it on Instagram, and the remarks and the enthusiasm that I got from people that were following my page really set me up with an idea of how I could start creating some more art. And I wouldn't necessarily have to have a whole full three-dimensional, just a partial three-dimensional type of process or product. And so what I started doing is using these box frames. The sizes and the limitations on that are what I use as far as creating the different facades. We've got a 14-inch by 6-inch canvas, essentially, and the depth of the frame is only 1.1 inches. So that means that my facades have to be less than that. So I limit myself to 1 inch depth, which creates some challenges sometimes, but it's actually kind of fun to work with. That, and I use mat board, so the limitations with that, I'm working within those constraints. The interesting part that's come out of this is that the pieces that I cut out, the windows and the doors, actually I started using to make tikis for some of the fronts of the houses. And that has proved to be very popular, and I may end up doing a series of just tikis in the box frames in a larger size without the houses or anything like that. So it's been kind of a fun process.
And here I am with Robert Webster, mid-mod facade. Hey, Bob, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Claudia.
Great. And okay, so I'm just totally drawn into those tikis. I mean, I measured across 4 little tikis made about 3 inches.
About that, yeah. They're only about 2 inches high, if that.
You have the little guys right there, really?
I do. I do. So here's one of the single ones. There we go.
Oh my gosh. I mean,
so for a little bit of scale.
Oh, and I'll take a pair of those for earrings.
So yeah, and then I started off with these two.
Oh.
So they share an eyebrow.
I love it. I love it. Those are great.
Thank you.
So that's, would you call it, I mean, to me, it seems like almost like relief work. Is it relief work when you build the white on white kind of a?
Yeah. It's, the whole thing started out with just doing almost like a cameo type of a situation. And I add a little bit of pop of color to one or two of them. Some of them I do completely white. Others I'll add, since we're so enamored with our doors here in Palm Springs.
Of course.
It's always a good idea to add a little color there. And the tikis were just kind of a spur of the moment thing. There were pieces of scraps left over, and I decided that I was just going to see what I could do with them. And since I've been building models for so long, cutting the small pieces was just, it was kind of serendipitous. And it's a stream of consciousness really for me when I'm just working on those. So
what we'd like to know, and I think our viewers would be really interested because you've explained a lot, but how does your design process start? Do you start with a sketch, an inspiration, a roof line, all of the above? How does it kind of?
It's kind of all of the above. I have a Cricut cutter that I used to cut out when I was working on the houses last year. I did some houses for a design company here in town, and I used that cutter actually to streamline the process, because otherwise it takes a long time to cut them out by hand. And then I get the basic shapes. So the details are things that I do hand cut. So like the tikis, or on some of the pieces that you'll probably be showing, I have like palm trees and that type of thing. Currently, I'm cutting those things out by hand. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So most of this is like maybe not necessarily a sketch that goes into your system.
Yeah, it'll be a sketch. I use both old school on a drafting table, and I also have an app on my iPad that I used called Concept.
Okay.
And that allows me to actually draw the shapes of the houses, and I can get things detailed down to where I draw the initial house, and then I back it out with the basic shapes so that I can actually input those to the other software.
Oh, that's interesting. So like say start to finish for one of your facades, of which we're going to show our viewers, like timing wise, I mean, because it looks so intricate, it must take hours. I'm not sure.
Well, it does, but with the Cricut, that helps me quite a bit as far as the cutter, the basic shape. One that I worked on this week, I finished up yesterday, and I started that on Monday, but I'm not working the entire day.
And so like, if it were me and I lived in like, I don't know, a beautiful, sort of butterfly roof home, could you actually do my home? Could I commission you to do my home?
Yeah, absolutely. What I would do is I would come over and I would take pictures of the front of the house, because I'm not as concerned with, say, the back of the house. Although I could take pictures all the way around and kind of utilize that, but it's primarily the front. I'm not doing any yards per se because I don't have the depth to do something like that. But that's what I would do for your home, is I would take pictures. And then I would ask you, if there was a particular matte color that you would want in the background.
Okay.
That's really the final part, is when I get all the different pieces done, is that I choose a matte, and it's right now it's whatever I feel like, or whatever Jennifer says looks good too. So she has a say.
She knows a lot because she has good taste. And so for our viewers that don't know, both of you, Bob, and Robert Webster and Jennifer Hickson were both interior designers for pretty much your entire career.
Most of our career,
Yeah. So this is sort of a natural progression, but you are a true artist in yourself, because I've seen so many other sketches and beautiful pieces that you've done.
Thank you.
It's interesting that even it seems like to me, since I know you, from the beginning of the pandemic, you have gone into total creative production mode on mid-mod facade. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. It's something to do. Not like we didn't have other things to do, but with the pandemic, we can't go out and have fun with our friends as much. So I'm almost full on production.
Can you give our viewers just an idea of kind of the price range? Because I know you're selling these. I mean, it's not like.
Right. Right now, what I've got is, as far as the basic shapes that I've been doing, is they're $300 a pop, plus shipping. Because if I get any commissions from outside of town, then I've got to figure out shipping as well. But that's framed, matted, and signed.
Okay.
Now, if it's a larger commission, say the house is fairly extensive, that's going to be more.
Okay.
It'll be 300 plus.
I know that also you have some sort of affiliation with Canyon View Estates.
That's correct.
For the Kreisel homes there, right?
one of the HOAs, and this was through the world famous Carlos Kiko Cardoza.
Oh, do we know him?
Yeah, he lives in
World
he lives
famous.
in he and Teddy both live in Canyon View Estates, and
Right.
so Carlos had talked to the president of the homeowners association and said, "Hey, I've got a friend who's willing to do, this." He says he did one for us, so I have a deal through that particular homeowners association.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's a mecca here in Palm Springs and all
yeah.
and other little pockets of the Coachella Valley for mid-century modern architecture. And just when you think you've seen everything, voila, there's some other stunning piece that comes undiscovered. So I'm sure your repertoire will just keep growing, just expanding and growing. And as things open up like modernism and all of
Right.
that, it's just going to be great. You're already doing this amazing work. So
I've gotten a lot of feedback, just by posting things on my Instagram page and then on Facebook that I share on Facebook.
oh yeah, and
I
you
have
have
a
a
web-
website now too. Is that correct?
That's correct. I still need to do some editing on it, but people can get to it. It's
Yeah.
midmodfacade.com.
Right. Bob, this has been great. So do check out Robert Webster Mid-Mod Facade, because you'll be blown away when you actually see all of his repertoire of work. Thanks a lot, Bob.
Thank you so much for having me on the program. I really
Oh,
appreciate
you're
it.
welcome. Okay.
All righty.
Bye.
Bye.
Wasn't that incredible? Isn't his work just unbelievably amazing?
I can't wait to actually see one of the projects or products, up close, because I
Yeah.
know he has cards and he has things you can frame, and I think he has models. I want to see all of those
the
up
3D
close.
Interesting about the 3D models too, because he actually began with the 3D models of mid-century homes, and he did I think he explained about his Christmas village he started with last year.
Yeah.
On top of that, he's now, and this is in real time, just become a member of PS Modcom's EdCom committee, which is PS Modcom is an educational Palm Springs Modern Committee, an educational committee that actually provides scholarships to high school seniors. And he also now will be mentoring to some students at Palm Springs High School.
You know what I love about this, Claudia, about what he's doing, and what a lot of our local folks who are in the arts, what they're doing is they're not just doing their own art and putting it out, which is what they are doing. That's how we know about them. But as soon as they get a little bit of a following, they turn right around and become mentors, just like Robert is doing to these kids at the school. I think of Tyson Knight, who turned around and started helping kids doing the various street art. Right? I mean, I love that's
Exactly.
one of the beauties of living in a somewhat small city like we do in the Coachella Valley, Palm Springs. You get to know these people, and then they get to know you, and they become mentors and help you learn additional crafts that you may not have done before. I love that about living here in the desert.
Oh, it's totally great. And some are young and some are retired, semi-retired, reinvent themselves and bring that creativity back into the community. It's incredible. If you have an iconic home and you'd like it to be sculpted, three-dimensionally sculpted by Robert Webster, we have info for you, because he does do custom work, and it's pretty amazing.
Let's end our show today. I'm going to talk about these folks here. Everybody knows Allison Ingram from Little House on the Prairie. Of course, she played Nellie Olson. Can you see her there?
I never saw it. I'm probably one of the few. Although I remember pictures, I might have seen a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Well, she's everywhere. She's still everywhere. And then the gentleman there is Wesley Yore. He played Will Marshall over on Land of the Lost and Days of Our Lives. Over at CV Rep, let's see if I can get in the middle here. There you go. Over at CV Rep, they do a luminaries lunch, which of course now everything's done virtual. And they just had this past week. And you get to spend about, it must have been 50 minutes or so of these two actors just talking about their life in the acting world and how they all knew each other and the shows that they did together when they first started and the parties that they went to. And it just, it was really a blast. The desert is alive.
Okay.
All right. All right, Claudia. See you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.